Okay, here we go. Kiran, do you want to introduce uh, us back?
Reintroduce. Yes.
Reintroduce ourselves and the platform as well.
Okay, I'll introduce ourselves.
You
Okay, so
introduce
I'm
yourself and the platform.
okay, so I'm Kiran, and this is Manal. I guess I'm introducing you as well.
Okay, this is Manal.
We are two brown doctors. Back to you after a little bit of a um, hibernation mode, and a little bit of a breakaway, a long breakaway.
Mhm.
But we started doing this podcast maybe 4 years ago now.
No, no, I would say a couple of years ago. I don't think 4 years ago. Okay, whatever. We
Maybe two,
started
three
doing this
years ago, 4 years ago. And the idea was to, sort of talk about everything,
Mhm.
our experiences, things that we, have reflect on, things that could be helpful for other people to hear about.
Mhm.
And we like talking to each other. So um, we are
Back today.
back, back today after a long time away. And we're trying something new where we're going to try to make these um, a little bit shorter,
Mhm.
but still try to keep like the nuance in our conversations alive and be true to that, and be a little bit more regular
Yeah.
with our conversations. Manal, do you want to add to
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. So I agree with what you're saying. I think what I will add is that we do bring a unique perspective because you are working as a child psychiatrist. I'm working as a child psychiatrist. Both of us work in the US. We bring like some expertise in child psychiatry because we're both psychiatrists and child psychiatrists to the conversation. We're also both immigrants to the US, so we bring a little bit of our lived experience into this conversation too, which could be helpful for people. Um, so that is the angle that we are both interested in academic medicine. So we bring that kind of like lens to the conversation as well. So there are a few different identities that we have that we are borrowing from. We are both mothers, uh, which is why we took the long gap because uh, okay, I don't know if I should say it, but that is the reason that we took a little bit of a gap as well. Anyway, so that is now that we're back here, the topic of the conversation for today is discomfort and the role that the discomfort can play in a variety of ways in various ways in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we will talk about discomfort in conversations, discomfort in as a tool for growth, discomfort in learning and unlearning, and a variety of like different areas where discomfort can show up in your life and how do we make sense of it and how do we navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Kiran, what do you think about? Do you like being comfortable? Do you like
I mean, I
discomfort?
think everybody likes being comfortable, right? That's the whole idea of comfort, is it feels good, it feels um you have like you feel like kind of settled and you feel good in it. And that's the whole idea of like discomfort, is that something doesn't feel comfortable, well, I guess comfortable,
Mhm.
but you feel a little bit uh
Unsettled.
unsettled. You feel a little on edge, a little restless,
Hmm.
a little bit like you feel a little off, and
Hmm.
it doesn't feel good, right? And I feel like so much has focused on like feeling good all the time that
Hmm.
I think we've kind of lost the idea of the merits of some discomfort
Hmm.
as well. What do you think now?
I
Are you
agree. I
comfortable?
think I think I mean I don't know if I like so I think there is a way to differentiate comfort from stability because as you were talking about comfort, I was like, okay, maybe I like being uncomfortable because I like change and I like you know something different to happen in life. However, that's not discomfort. I think discomfort is when you feel a little bit unsettled as opposed to lack of stability. So there is,
Right.
so I don't want anyone to kind of like conflate comfort with stability. Comfort could be where you're in the flow zone and you are trying out new things, but you feel comfortable with trying out new things.
Mm-hmm.
Discomfort is when you are kind of like challenged in a way that unsettles you, unravels you, you feel a little bit on the edge, kind of a thing. So you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right in pointing out that difference. Okay, so
So why are we talking about this now? Why should people kind of opt for discomfort or take a look at discomfort again?
like the thing that comes to my mind is that if everything is comfortable, if everything is kind of stagnant, like one thing that I was thinking about this, and I'm going on a tangent, so just follow me here. I was thinking about the idea of a perfect mother yesterday, a mother who kind of like meets the need. Like, for example, if you have a baby and you have a perfect mother, she will anticipate that the baby is hungry and will kind of like feed the baby before the baby can even cry, or will know that the baby has wetted themselves and will kind of come and change the diaper for the baby before they even cry. That is like a perfect, in some ways, quote unquote, a perfect mother because she's meeting the needs before the child even has to kind of like relay those needs to the mom. However, then that perfect mother is also not allowing the child to develop those self-regulatory capacities because the world is not going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The people are never going to be fully attuned with the baby the way, sometimes our parents are, but our parents are only 33%. They say that it's a game of like, one third. It's like one third of the time they're attuned to us fully, one third of the time they're finding attunement with us, and one third of the time they're kind of out of attunement with us. So the world, like if that is what parents, if that's the bar for the parents, the world is going to be out of attunement. So there is discomfort is inherently built into life.
Mm-hmm.
Discomfort, so you cannot truly escape it, and the idea is also not to escape it because it teaches you valuable lessons. Like
Yeah.
the way that we say that you cannot escape anger, you cannot escape sadness because they give you valuable data about what's happening
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
externally and internally. So you cannot escape discomfort. It teaches you new things and new parts of your identity or aspects of yourself that you need to tap into and unlock. Take it
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. And I think that, when you're trying something new, it's kind of like you're trying to figure out a new place to go. You're going to feel very different compared to when you're doing your drive home from work, which is like you're very used to that route. You go there every day. You know the usual traffic patterns. You know what time to leave in order to get home at a certain time. But when you're driving somewhere new, you'll notice that your mind is kind of not drifting into, kind of like usual thoughts, but you will be like very focused. You are going to try to get there and you don't know what the so you're going to do a little bit more research as well in order to, kind of like find the most optimal route. You're going to like, hopefully you're always attentive, but you're going to your attention, you'll notice a slight difference in the way that you're paying attention as well. And you might you learn something new along the way. That's kind of like, the new um the discomfort in a new analogy in a new place as well. I don't know if that made.
I know that makes absolute sense because as you were saying this, I was also thinking about if you are going to the same destination every time and you have rehearsed, you have memorized the route, it's kind of like you have internalized it, it's second nature to you, you can go on autopilot, but that means you're going to the same destination every day.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to go to a newer destination, you have to try out a new route, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I talk to oftentimes to children about this. I also like I to parents about this that, and I'm taking it into the world of psychiatric disorders and mental illness, but still, I say that all of the psychiatric disorders or mental illness, what they do in some ways is constrict the experience of life.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of anxiety, it constricts your experience of life. You feel anxious about doing certain things and you avoid. If it's depression, it constricts the experience of life because it takes away the motivation, it takes away kind of like
Mm-hmm.
it causes fatigue and everything. You cannot engage in newer experiencing are newer experiences are not as rewarding for you, so you don't do those things. You kind of like withdraw from the experience of life. Similarly, like eating disorders, OCD, a lot of these disorders constrict the experience of life. And the goal of all treatment is always to expand your access to these experiences of life so that you get to decide whether I
Mm-hmm.
want to try something out or not, so that depression or anxiety or something else is not deciding those things for you. So even with discomfort, by embracing discomfort, you are expanding your access to newer experiences. Uh, and also, like the other thing that I tell them that is we want increased, access to newer experiences and flexibility, so that you have different aspects of yourself whether different aspects of how you approach situations, your skills, the way you think about things, so that you can tap into and adapt to newer situations. And this is what discomfort can also give you is new skills. So
Mm-hmm.
new muscles where you can apply those muscles. So both for the purposes of flexibility and expanding your experience of life. Discomfort is necessary. It takes you to a new destination.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Um, how do you think being uncomfortable, or kind of like embracing for discomfort can be too, do you think it can be, there can be too much discomfort with something and then can that hinder learning?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there is a difference between optimal, like we were just talking before we
Yeah.
started this podcast that there is going to be a difference between optimal frustration again. This is a term from the mental health world, but optimal frustration means just enough stress to allow for the growth. But if it's too much, if it borders trauma and abuse, then that's of course not good,
Yeah.
right? And
It was
also,
making, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say that, it was making me think because you were linking it with mental illness, and I was thinking a little bit about, OCD and how when people are truly struggling with OCD, like, part of the treatment does entail kind of that discomfort, but in that optimal range rather than sort of saying face all your fears all the time, things that
Flooding.
make you really uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Let's jump in the deep end of the pool, like
yeah,
that may not be kind of exposing yourself to like, optimal levels. Um, but kind of like picking something that's a little bit, sort of like doable so that it can also like then register on you that you had some growth. Because if you're kind of in that higher range where you're, like
mhm,
you're saying, Chape, where there's like lots of where it's kind of surpassed that, then learning can be really limited as well because you're really just trying to survive in
yeah.
that phase. So like the survival versus, kind of like growth phases are different.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And that concept used to be the flooding concept where you put someone in
Yeah,
a room
yeah.
and then it is such an unpleasant, as you're saying, it's such an unpleasant experience that you're just wanting to get through it, as opposed to kind of like truly leaning into it and learning things from it. You're just waiting for it to be over. And that should not be the goal of an experience is to just wait and for it to be over. You want to engage with
And and I think that that's not sustainable. Also,
That's
like,
not sustainable.
if you do it once or twice, like sure, somebody could do something once or twice, but really to embrace something like it also feels so uncomfortable that it's hard to embrace that,
Yeah.
you know.
And then your
Um,
amygdala, like even if we think about it from like, brain, if you're constantly in your amygdala and you're in fight and flight, or you're fearful, then you are not engaging with higher levels of your
yeah,
cognitive functioning. You're not kind of tapping into your executive functioning, doing problem solving, tapping into working memory, foresight, linking actions with consequences. You're not doing any of that work. You're just surviving, as you were
yeah,
pointing
yeah. And that's what like our brain is really meant to do, is to help us, like it will always prioritize survival
out. Hmm.
over other things. But then yes, in order to tap into kind of like that higher order learning that you're saying and that executive function, you have to you and maybe that's where the idea of stability also comes in, is that like, if things are kind of like stable, if that discomfort where things are, you're safe, I guess, will be very different than you're uncomfortable and you're like not feeling safe.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to change gears a little bit. Like the other thing that sometimes I say to kiddos is like growth comes with growing pains, right?
Yeah.
That you cannot avoid growing pains. There is this idea in academic medicine, in other places as well, that it should feel very comfortable, or it should feel very kind of like everything should feel familiar in some ways, but that's
Hmm.
not where learning can actually happen. There are some studies to show that you need a little bit of stress to be able to kind of like learn new things. Um, what do you think about that?
I think that that's true because I'm also trying to think of it from like the developmental arc spectrum, and that on the developmental arc, when your brain's developing, like sure, when you're younger, your brain is primed,
Mhm.
to learn from all experiences. But like as you get older and brain develop kind of completes, our brain's still very plastic, so it still learns. But when things happen, it learns. When something kind of like new or interesting happens, that's when it learns. When you're uncomfortable, you make a new connection. That's when it kind of like learns. But if you're always only exposing yourself to things that you know what value to assign to it, you know what's going to happen at the end of it, then learning is gonna be then it's gonna be stagnant, and then you're not gonna like really learn a lot of new things um as an adult, you know?
Yeah, no, my son recently bought rollerblades, and I was telling him that when I first got like rollerblades, and I was using them, I fell 8 times
Mm.
on my first day of using them, and uh, every time you get up and you try to move, and you're a younger person, so you're not as kind of like bothered by falling down, and kind of like you're quick to get up again and try again. But there are going to be some faults built into
Yeah.
learning a new thing. Like you cannot escape that. If it was so comfortable, like there wouldn't be a need to learn if you knew how to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then you won't learn something new, you won't have fun, right? Like you miss out on the experience. You were talking about like constricted experience. You miss out on the experience of that as well.
Yeah, because then I really enjoyed it, and then I got good at it, and I used to do it all the time until I grew out of it. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
like my
And
feet grew out of it. Like literally, my feet had to grow out of it for me to not stop using them.
yeah, because it was a new way of experiencing
Hmm.
like fun. What do you think about discomfort in like, we talked about like learning kind of as an individual, or kind of like what about in relationships? How can discomfort serve us in relationships, you think? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, right? That um discomfort, or kind of like being able to say things that may not be fully comfortable. I mean, still with lots of, um, in safe relationships, being able to say things that could be a little bit uncomfortable to talk about, can bring like honesty into them as well, and can like really deepen the experience of it as well, kind of make it less superficial.
Hmm.
But it's uncomfortable sometimes to say things to people that you care about, that you may feel like um, they're not the most comfortable things to say.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And as you were talking about like the learning piece and you were talking about the therapy piece, I was also thinking, and we were trying to differentiate what is discomfort that is optimal for growth versus what is discomfort that's kind of like, that's too much or that
Mm-hmm.
puts you into the survival zone. And I was thinking about it that what you need is a gradual way of kind of getting there. You also need it to be optimal and not surpass or become like so much that you can't fully digest it. And also, you need a supportive environment. So if we do with the OCD or with obsessive compulsive disorder, the way that they do therapy is that yes, there is going to be exposures, but you have your therapist, and
Right.
they're there to make meaning with you, right? With learners, you will have your teacher, or you will have your your faculty person, or your supervisor, or your mentor, kind of like helping you make meaning out of this. And similarly, in relationships, it is inevitable that you will have, uh, you know, ruptures and repairs are a part of life,
Mm-hmm.
and there will always be ruptures. If a rupture happens between a child and a mother, ruptures are inherent in every relationship. They are going to happen, but it's how you repair those ruptures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how big or small are those ruptures? If it's a big rupture, for example, if it's abuse, that's something different. However, if it's
Yeah.
a conversation where you're like, hey, we are misaligned on this right now, and can we revisit this? Or, hey, I'm feeling a little under with regards to all the things that I have to do in the household. Can we kind of like figure out a way in which I also feel supported? And, if this is a tough time for me, I want to have that conversation. Because if you're avoiding those conversations and if you're only saying what you believe the person wants to hear
Wants
from
to
you,
hear. Mm-hmm.
then also over time, this is going to result in resentment and you're going to withdraw from the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think it is important because a lot of times the instinct can kick in that, okay, I need to retreat to safety
Mm-hmm.
and I cannot have this conversation, let's avoid. But avoidance in that moment actually ends up, building up and then becomes avoidance of that relationship as opposed to just avoidance of that conversation.
Right, right. And I think that it's important that, if you're thinking about approaching that conversation, that it be done in a way that it doesn't trigger the other person's kind of, survival
Mhm.
mechanism, and do not put them in fight or flight. So like it doesn't mean that, when you have to go talk about something, that you don't go with kind of um, with like the with a bluntness that could be hurtful as well, right? But that if it is uncomfortable, it acknowledging that what's making me uncomfortable might also be making another person, like this conversation might also make the other person uncomfortable. And so sort of like approach it in that way can help deepen the relationship as well. Like kind of if you're approaching about a conversation that could, make it a little bit hard to talk, that could improve the relationship. That's a relationship, that's a task conflict in that relationship. And, you approach it with that lens in mind, but that the other person might also be a little uncomfortable when you bring that up. It could be, not always, but could be uncomfortable when you bring it up with them. um, they might not know, right? Like you might be feeling uncomfortable, they might not know what's happening. And so it could help kind of again increase empathy and communication between two people as well. And it could deepen, I also think it could also like deepen, if it truly is done in a safe relationship and in a safe way, it can also increase self-awareness. A
Hmm.
lot of times when friends are talking with each other and there is some kind of uncomfortable thing that you're talking about, sometimes it's not always about task conflict as
Hmm.
well, right? Like sometimes a friend could be saying something with a lot of love, kind of pointing something out for you that could lead to growth for you as well,
Hmm.
right? And that feels uncomfortable.
Hmm. I think one way to go about this is like uh, not making it person focused. So as opposed to saying that you're
Right,
lazy, or like if let's just take it to the task kind of a thing, that you're inconsiderate, you're lazy. That is making it person focused, right? You
right.
make it process focused. You articulate things with I based statements like
Yes.
that I have been, um, that I have been feeling this, or I have been under a lot of stress, and I really would appreciate having a little bit more support at this time, kind of a thing. Or these are my strengths, and these are some of the things that I can do for the relationship, and I need these things from you, kind of a thing. So you're not making an assessment of another person's person,
Right,
and you're not also making an assessment of their intentions. You are doing this to hurt me. No,
right,
just say that I feel hurt when this happens.
right.
Don't assume on the behalf of the other person, because what is the goal? If the goal is to keep the relationship intact, or if the goal is to kind of like deepen that relationship, then your actions should be in service of those kinds of outcomes.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. No, I like it. I like what you said, that bringing back like the I feel statement into it, because it has higher likelihood of not putting the other person on defense mode, like
Hmm.
being defensive as well, and keep it about, kind of like the task or even your feeling, right? If you ever, we're talking about having these conversations in relationships that can be safe,
Hmm.
where, the assumed intention is that there's mutual care and
Hmm.
respect. And then so in those relationships, kind of talking about your feeling first will sh will have an should beget, kind of empathy too, and keep it focused on your feeling, because you're saying I'm going to have this conversation with a person who cares about my feelings
Hmm.
as well, right? And so and in the same relationship, if you make it like you're saying, sort of like have blaming language in it, that would put the other person on defensive, and you're going to still feel the same way. So like it won't get you to your goal. You're thinking about what your goal is, so it won't kind of get you closer to your goal. It might move you further away actually.
Yeah, and as you were like, I was also like, as we were talking about this, I was also thinking that if I am coming into the conversation with the idea, okay, this is what I need from you, that means I have done the first step of kind of like figuring out why am I feeling a little bit unsettled, or why am I feeling so discomforted by the situation, or something along those lines. And then it helps me clarify for myself, okay, what am I needing in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
So it allows you for that kind of like greater agency in terms of problem solving. Okay, I need a little bit more support, or I need a little bit more kind of quality time together, or I need
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of more nurturance, or I need a little bit of like, uh, whatever it is. So then you're also putting that out there, that these are what my needs are. And it also allows you to think, okay, maybe I'm like, for example, if I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, where are some other areas of my life where I can also kind of like scale back so that I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel so overwhelmed. Like, but if I come at it from the angle that you are inconsiderate, then the problem is fixed. That the if the other person becomes more considerate, then I won't feel overwhelmed, right? Then the problem solving gets very skewed and
Mm-hmm.
becomes very that person changing themselves, dependent, as opposed to, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need a little bit more support during this time. And that makes you think, okay, what can I cut down from my own schedule? What I need from that other individual, but what I need from my kind of like workplace, what do I need from myself? Do I need to be taking more care of myself? Am I kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
have I been neglecting my own needs? And how do I kind of show up for even myself? So it gives you agency as opposed to externalizing the issue completely and feeling helpless then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As you were talking, I was also thinking that, um, sort of is the pitch that we're making, not a pitch, but like, is what we're saying is like, go have all the like make yourself optimally uncomfortable all the time. Or I think what we're saying is, that there can be merit to being uncomfortable,
Hmm.
to sort of embrace the idea of discomfort and to reframe it in your mind as something that could lead to growth and improvement and more depth,
Yeah.
expanding the experience of life, as you were saying. I liked what you said, how you framed that.
Yeah. That don't be afraid of discomfort and don't discard experiences just because in the initial phases of it you feel a little bit uncomfortable or you feel a little bit unsettled by it. Lean into it and see what information it's giving to you about what's happening in your surroundings or what's happening within you. However, I will also say don't make yourself uncomfortable all the time. I will say
Exactly. Yeah.
pace it, because if I am uncomfortable, if I'm leaning into discomfort at work, at home, in my motherhood, in my like all different arenas of my life, then I have no refuge.
Mm-hmm.
You would want to pace discomfort in a way that it's not, even if it's like optimal discomfort, but if it's optimally kind of like spread all around you, then there's no area where uh, where you in no space where you're comforted. So you do
Mm-hmm.
want some spaces where you're comforted and some spaces where you're a little bit challenged. However, uh, don't be afraid of those challenging spaces and don't retreat to safety every time you feel a little discomforted by something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm thinking that even as you learn new things, like our brain needs time for it to kind of settle as well, that this is, we use this mechanism, we use this pathway a little bit more for it to kind of get stronger as well. So perhaps spacing it could also mean that you're allowing time both for, you know unlearning unhelpful patterns,
Hmm.
learning something new, but also for it to be settled and kind of like hardwired in for a little bit as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So what are our takeaways, Dr. Manal, on?
I think those were the takeaways that don't be afraid of discomfort. Don't try to discard it at the first sign of discomfort. Don't try to seek discomfort in every arena of the life at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, Allow yourself to lean into some of these experiences and learn and engage with them, not kind of like just going. If they're too uncomfortable that you only have to survive through them, then those are not the types of
Mhm.
discomfort that we are telling you to lean into. But allow yourself to engage. Like, for example, if I have to learn a new topic or if I have to present on a new topic, allow myself to kind of like engage with it in a way that I'm like, okay, I'm learning something new. I'm building a new muscle.
Mhm.
What about
Yeah.
you?
No, I
Anything?
think those are some of, yeah, I think that you summed it up very nicely, that we don't always want to be optimally uncomfortable. We also don't want to be super uncomfortable, or like be unsafe, for extended periods of time.
Mhm.
But that, kind of when the situation presents itself, or you have an opportunity to approach it with some curiosity, that you might
Mhm.
learn something new, like a skill. I mean, even you might even learn something new about yourself,
Mhm.
in that situation, or you might learn something new about the relationship, especially if you're doing it in a supportive, relationship dynamic as well. That could really serve us. Like discomfort can also serve us
Mhm.
in growth too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do we want to
Okay.
conclude for today and then come back with another topic?
Yeah, this seems like a comfortable spot to
Bring it into a closure. Okay, I will then stop recording.